ReeferGil here. We finally come to the moment where I could do the swap of the sumps. I've been waiting a long time for this. This is going to be a long video, so we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. Before I get into the current system that I'm running, I want to make a quick announcement regarding Kessil lights. Kessil is coming out with a new light this year, hopefully by May 2014. It's going to be an aluminum casing light, about 2 feet long, a few inches wide. It's supposed to cover a 4 by 4 foot area of your system. It's going to be completely Wi-Fi controllable, and the price range currently is between $800 to $1,000. So if you're in the market for a new light, I suggest you hold off, see what Kessil comes out with, and see if that's something of your likings. We'll go ahead and get started with the Aqueon Proflex 3 sump that I've been running for over a year now, and we'll start off with the first stage. My system has one drain, and then the Proflex 3 has one inlet, so that works out great for me. That one inlet drops into the first stage where the filter socks are located. There are 2 filter socks in there, and I really like how Proflex or Aqueon put these filter socks in so that you can have a side view to determine when these filter socks need to be changed out. Then you have a gate that's adjustable here. You can see the top of it, it goes up or down. And then in the second stage, you have the Chaeto or the Refugium in my case. And the Refugium, I have Miracle Mud, some Rubble Rock, Chaeto Morpha, and you can see how well established this Refugium is with the coral line growing all over the place. I have sponges growing in there. I have pods growing or breeding in the Chaeto Morpha itself. The Refugium is lit by this 12-inch Marineland LED light with white and blue lights, and that's what I've been running for the last year and a half. And then between the second and the third stage, you have a little sponge down here, which I've never changed out or cleaned out. And then the third stage is the main reason why I want to upgrade to the Ruby 36, because it's just crammed with the equipment. There's no more room for growth with this sump, and so I'll be changing it out. The Proflex 3 measurements are 25.5 inches long, 13 3/4 inches wide, and then roughly 17 inches high. The Ruby 36 is going to be 36 inches long, 15 inches wide, and 16 inches high. Now, in all fairness, Aqueon does make a Proflex 4, which is also 36 inches long, but I went with the Ruby 36 because I just think it looks a lot nicer and it's a lot more sturdy. You can see that the acrylic on this is flimsy, and on the trigger system it's a lot more secure. The last thing I want to mention about Aqueon sumps is that they are interchangeable, in that you can run a Berlin style sump, you can run a Refugium style sump, which is what I'm doing, or you can run a wet dry sump, and all the parts for those options come with the sump itself. Okay, excuse all the wire mess, that's all going to be cleaned up once the new sump is in. Just wanted to show you that I did have a lot of storage room here because the Proflex 3 allowed me to do that because it was a lot shorter. With the Ruby 36, it's going to come way out to here, so this storage is going to be gone. So what I've done to compensate for that is just hung a little basket with 2-sided tape on the inside of the door here with some food that I use daily. And then I also had this little cabinet made that's sitting right next to the tank stand. And at the bottom you can see I have my auto top off. Just by opening the door I can see where the water line is, so I know when to refill it. I have a couple things hanging on the inside of the door here. And then I also have a door on this side for access to my alkalinity, calcium 1-gallon jugs, and additional storage, and then a little shelf with more storage up here. Here's some equipment that I'll either be replacing or adding to the Ruby 36. First off, I'll be replacing that flimsy fan that you saw hanging on top of the stand with this Air King fan that I purchased from BRS. I'll be replacing the Marineland 12-inch LED with this Phoenix Fuge Ray LED to light up my Refugium. I'll be adding these 2 MJ12s to the first and third stages of the sump to circulate the water and prevent detritus from building up. I have some polyfiber just in case I need that for the change out of the Miracle Mud, which I'll talk about in a second. I have a padding for the bottom of the sump. I was going to use this Eheim Jaguar heater, but it's only 150 watt and that's not going to cut it for the size tank that I have. So I'll be sticking with the Phoenix 300 watt heaters. They've proven to work and I'll continue using them. And then I'll be replacing my Mag 7 with this Eheim Compact Plus 5000. And the reason I went with this particular return pump is because it has an adjustable valve on the side and I can adjust the amount of water going into the display tank. Also, Eheim's a reputable company and their pumps are known to be very quiet. For those of you who are not familiar, Primo Reef in Acrylics has a Facebook and a YouTube page. He specializes in making custom acrylic items for your reef tanks. In my case, I asked him to make me a mud tray. This is what came in the mail. The mud tray is the same color as the ruby. Looks very sexy. This thing's solid, very sturdy, and high quality. The mud tray is going to be used obviously to store my mud in. It's recommended that once a year you change out your mud, 50% of it, and then add 50% new mud. So because of that, I asked for this mud tray to make it a lot easier for me to pull in and out the mud without making too much of a mess. We have holes right here on the handle / divider, and that's for the microfauna to make its way back and forth between the two chambers, as well as adding some additional water flow. So thank you very much, Reef and Acrylics, or I'm sorry, better get that right, Primo Reef and Acrylics, for making me this mud tray. It came out great. In addition to that, he also sent me some frag plug trays of various sizes and colors. Also sent me a LED light for my Refugium and a viewing container so I can view my tank from the top bottom. And also sent me some stack of business cards, which I'll be taking with me to MACNA, and hopefully somebody will be willing to leave them on their desk so that you get some advertising. So thank you very much, Primo Reef and Acrylics. If you guys haven't checked out his channel, check it out. He has some awesome sumps, awesome tanks that he makes, also some accessories like what I've requested. So check them out. What I plan to do for the plumbing is, for the return, I'm just going to have a hose plumb directly from my return pump into the display tank. And for the drain, I'm going to have a drain going directly into the Ruby 36 with hard plumbing, as well as hard plumbing for the emergency overflow for the Herbie style overflow system that I have. So this is basically what I'll be using, in addition to a couple of other pieces, of course. Here's a side-by-side comparison of the Omega 150 on the left and the Reef Octopus 110 skimmer on the right, which is what I've been running for the last year and a half. The Omega 150 is rated for 150 gallons an hour, where the Reef Octopus 110 is rated for 100 gallons an hour. But you can see the difference here. Even when you pick them up, you can just feel that the Omega 150 is a lot more solid. Very happy to be upgrading to this Omega 150, which is another big reason why I went from the Proflex 3 to the Ruby 36 sump. Here's what I'll be replacing the Proflex 3 with. This is the Ruby 36-inch sump. You can see that it has 3 chambers, just like the Proflex 3, except it's going to be arranged a little differently. You can see I have 2 inlets here for the drains, and then they both go into filter socks. I will be running both filter socks 24/7, and then in this area I'll have my Omega 150 skimmer. The water will then go through here and into the second chamber, which is going to be my Refugium area. I'll have my mud tray, Miracle Mud, Chaeto, and then the light up on top. And then the water goes into this little divider here, where it goes into a sponge filter. And then there's a tray here where if you want to run some media bags, you can do that. And then the third chamber is where I'm going to have my return pump and probably the dual reactor. And again, I'm going to have some room to grow with this sump, so I'm very excited about that. And now I'll go ahead and swap out the sumps and get this. Alright, my partner and I have removed the Proflex 3 from the stand. Everything just looks like a mess. I'm stressing out about this. I did have a little bit of a water leak when I undid the plumbing. Have some towels on hand for that, so cleaned it up real quick. One thing I wanted to mention though is if you're doing any kind of maintenance where you have to remove the pH probe, make sure you keep that pH probe nice and moist, because if it dries up, it will go bad. I do have a heater running in the display tank right now to keep things nice and warm for them, but I want to get this Ruby 36 up and running as quickly as possible because my Chaeto is in a bucket and I want to get that back in the system and up and running before it goes bad. Real quick on the plumbing. This is the main drain here. I'll have the main drain hard plumbed into the Ruby 36. I think I'm going to use red PVC again, like I did with the water making station. And then this is going to be full siphon, so if anything gets clogged up here, any debris, then I have the emergency overflow kicks in there so that I don't get flooding in the display tank. Emergency overflow, I think I'm going to have it in the first chamber or the third chamber. I'm not sure which direction I'm going to go with that yet. And then I have the return here. It's 3/4 inch, so I'm going to have a 3/4 inch to 1 inch bushing for the 1 inch hose bar because the Eheim 5000 takes a 1 inch hose. So I'll go ahead and get this stuff cleaned up and make room for the Ruby 36. Guys, the sump is finally in. This thing took me 2.5 days to pull the old sump out, the old plumbing, install the new plumbing, and put the new sump with the new equipment in it. I was sitting on my butt, standing up, sitting on my butt, standing up. Guys, my legs are so sore, I feel like I've been doing squats. No joke. But the sump is in. I couldn't be happier. This thing looks awesome downstairs and from the display tank, and I'm very, very happy I've done it. So we'll go ahead and get started real quick on how everything works. I'm not going to do any product reviews at this point because obviously I just purchased the new pieces of equipment, but I will do one of those reviews later down the line. Starting off with the plumbing, here is my main drain. You can see it has a gate valve on there for the Herbie method overflow. The main drain goes right into the very first filter sock, and then the emergency drain back here comes into the sump area and goes into the second filter sock in the back. The reason I decided to go this way was because when I was cleaning out the Mag 7 and the Proflex 3, I noticed that the strainer had a bunch of bubble algae and other stuff that had collected from the emergency overflow, pushing it down from the display tank into the sump. So in order to play it safe, when the emergency overflow kicks on, if it wants to bring down any debris, it's now going to bring it down into the filter sock. The return here, it's 3/4 inch bulkhead, 3/4 inch, 1 inch bushing, 1 inch hose, and goes to the Eheim 5000 down there. Oftentimes I'll watch videos and a lot of people will neglect putting these clamps on, both on this end and right above the return pump. It's really important to put these clamps on because after a while these hoses will actually widen out and they won't be as securely fastened to your barb hoses, and if those things pop off, you're gonna have a huge mess. You can imagine if that popped off in here, all the equipment that's in here, electronics, are gonna get just soaked. Here's the monster of a skimmer, the Vertex Omega 150 in the first stage of the sump. The skimmer still going through the break-in period. I did remove the collection cup, close the intake all the way, and let it run like that for 24 hours as recommended by Vertex. However, 2 days later, I'm still finding it still needs fine-tuning. Once in a while, I'll walk over here and the collection cup is full of wet skimmate, so I don't completely trust the skimmer yet until it breaks in. It is sitting in about 7.5 inches of water and sitting on top of this little crate that I made for it. But I will do a full review of the Omega 150 down the line, so you can stay tuned for that. So far, so good. The second stage of the sump consists of my Refugium area. The Refugium area has in it a Miracle Mud tray, Miracle Mud, rock, my Chaeto, a heater, and the Refugium area is lit by this 12-inch Fuge Ray Phoenix LED light, and that's what I'm using for now. It's a lot brighter than the other light that I was using, the Marineland one. So hopefully I get some good results out of it. If not, I will switch out the lights and experiment with that a little bit better. But this Miracle Mud tray worked out great. I had zero issues with the mud clouding up the water. I put it in here and everything worked out just fine. I did use this piece of acrylic and place it on top of the mud so that the water would not disturb the surface of the mud as much. But it worked out great. Zero issues clouding up the water. Very happy with it. In between the second and third stages of the sump, we have two trays here. The first tray up on top has a sponge filter, and then the second stage at the bottom just has some filter pads. Going into the last stage of the sump, I have an MJ1200 pumping the water into this BRS dual reactor that has GFO and carbon in it. The blue magnet there, that has my auto top off sensor for the Tsunami auto top off. I have Apex probes there, one for the pH, the other for the temperature of the water. I have a float switch here in the back. The float switch, if triggered, will alarm the apex that the water in the third stage of the sump is too high. That will then turn off my skimmer and also my auto top off. I have my dosers here for alkalinity and calcium, as well as the auto top off water from the auto top off reservoir coming in. As far as water level goes, I have the first stage set at 10 inches, the second stage also at 10 inches, and the third stage is at 7 inches of water depth. In terms of operating water volume, this sump does about 23.5 gallons, where the Proflex did 20 gallons. So that's only a difference of about 3.5 more gallons with this sump than with the last. But with the design of this sump here, it allows me to put a huge skimmer in the first section, and also allows me room to grow in the third section of the sump. Whereas with the Proflex, everything was just crammed into one chamber of the sump. Aside from cleaning up the wire mess and hanging up my fan, we're in winter right now, so I'm not too worried about the fan. This project is finally complete. That will conclude the video. If you guys have any questions or comments, leave them down below. Otherwise, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks.